Hindi siguro ang ganda class kung in case magkaroon ng problema sa connection as long it is recorded. Kaso parang ang tagal din niyang mag-respond. Hintayin natin. Yan. Okay. Full screen ko to. Kaso lang sa full screen, hindi gumagana masyado ang kondito eh. Ang arrow. Okay, class, now it's characteristic of life. No? So, typically when you say characteristic of life, ano yung naaalala nyo or pwede natin pag-usapan about characteristic? What comes into your mind? Anyone who would like to answer, class? Yung say characteristic. Sinabi, anong characteristic mo? Diba? Okay, yes. So, anong sagot? Sagot na lang. Sige, go.
Ma'am, yung naisip ko po when it comes to characteristics of life, yun po yung parang bumubuo sa isang tao.
Yung bumubuo sa isang tao. Yes, Mr. Palmero?
Ma'am, something that describes po the entirety from smallest to the biggest part of of life itself po, not just a certain organism po, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. It's from the smallest to the biggest. Okay, it's a very detailed, no? You say characteristic, it should be very detailed, no? Parang, okay. And when you say characteristic, it is only identified to one, di ba? Okay. So, ito ay para lang sa may mga may buhay, no? So, when you don't have life, then this is not for you, okay? That's why living things were differentiated from the non-living things. Along with this, we have the properties of life. No? So we had several. Mayroon kayo nakita, 7 yan, no? 7. So when you talk about cellular composition, iisipin nyo kaagad, okay, this is the cell that makes up living organisms. No? So we knew that hindi lang naman tayong tao ang living organisms. We're actually classified to be, we have plant organisms or plant living organisms. We have bacterial organisms, and tayo, no? And sometimes when you talk about cell, okay, maririnig nyo rin sinasabing, okay, eukaryotic and the prokaryotic cells. So, eukaryotes or the prokaryotes. And of course, next is organization. When you say organization, sinabi kanina, no? From smallest to largest, okay, top to bottom or bottom to top, okay, as long as there is an organization. And of course, when you talk about metabolic pathways, ito na yung mga proseso, no? Chemical processes that was happening inside the cell. So, kung mabibigyan natin ng function ang mga processes na nangyayari sa loob ng cell, madali na lang nating maintindihan what would be the processes that would be happening for the entire multicellular organism. Okay. So we will be starting with the unicellular or the cell only. So usually, mga cell na makikita natin, it corresponds to a general structure of cell. General yan, class eh. But along the way, in higher biology, you would see that the structure and the function of the cells, the function of the cell corresponds to its structure. So, kung yung structure niya, yun yung function niya. And we have so many cells inside the body as it was divided to the different organs also that we have inside the body. Okay, so metabolic pathways, no? So, yan, isa dyan yung pinakamahirap na aralin na cellular respiration. Next is homeostasis. Homeostasis has something to do with balance, no? It has something to do of how your body adapt to the environment. Okay, tulad ngayon, no, usong-uso ang mga lagnat. Okay, everyone, I think, if not everyone, at least most of us, okay. And one that you would check now when you are you had fever is you chill, no? You chill, nanginginig, no? That's the first sign, eh. You chill. Because that's one way that your body was telling you that nagbabago na yung temperatura ng katawan mo. No? It is along with fever already. Class, nakikita niyo yung, naririnig niyo ba yung ingay ng mga bata sa labas? Naririnig
Medyo po.
niyo? Medyo. Sandali lang ha. At mambabawal lang ako. Okay, class. Sana tumahimik sila kahit sandali lang. Okay? Okay, that's homeostasis. So there are two types of homeostasis. It's a positive feedback mechanism and a negative feedback mechanism. So that depends on the parts of the body that would be reacting on balance when you say homeostasis. So lahat yan ay yung brain ang nagsasabi of how the body would be reacting. You would maybe ask me that, does the brain dictates it? It tells your system to do so, no? So we have the central nervous system, di ba? Automatic na sa katawan mo, okay? So part of this that reacted to the diseases and for your body to initiate fever as a first line of defense for infection ay yung immune system natin. So sa totoo lang, hindi naman talaga masama na naglalagnat ka. It's a good sign. It's just that kaya ka nagpaparacetamol, kaya ka naliligo, or you need to be hydrated because yung effect ng fever sa katawan mo, pag hindi mo yan manage, masama din. Because you could be dehydrated, okay? So hindi na kasi yan kayang kontrolin ng brain. Isang alam niya lang, okay, you have to fight this infection. It was inside the body. So, kanya-kanyang na yung mga T-cells. Actually, maraming line of defenses class. That for their defenses, it's a very complicated thing to study. So, ang masasabi ko lang, that depends on what was getting inside your body. Is it a bacterial infection? Is it a viral infection? But typically, yung fever normal. Kaya pag hindi ka nag-fever, parang hindi rin siya okay, class. Kasi you don't know that you were infected. You don't know if you have to take a medicine. Okay? It could be possible like, okay, may lagnat ka, wala kang lagnat, but you don't feel good. Okay? So, lalo na ngayon, class, napaka-konong situation natin because how, when you go to the vaccination site, sabi ko nga, why other people that were vaccinated died? One thing that I know why is it could be possible that they were infected or there was something wrong with them na hindi na nila napansin, no? Because of the eagerness that they need to have this vaccine or the booster. Kaya yung count pag nagpapabaksin ka mahalaga. It should not right after be, okay, for example, sa akin, nagkasakit kami halos lahat, no? And then, how many days are we going to count bago kami magpa-booster? Because dapat booster na talaga kami. So that's a very crucial thing, class. Okay. So kailangan talaga magkaroon ng quarantine, magkaroon ng ilang days. Okay. Kaya sana nga ako, every household could really afford even the rapid test, but it's quite expensive, no? Pero parang kailangan lagi, mayroon na yatang ganun talaga since si COVID naman ay hindi natatapos ng dating sa ating bansa, no? Okay. So for growth, of course, everyone grow, no? Pwede niyo sabihin, ma'am, there were cases that abnormal growth. It could be like you grow so tall or you grow so, yung mga dwarfism or gigantism. So this is associated actually to the hormones that they have inherited from their parents. Okay. What hormone dominates on their thyroid glands? Okay. And of course, reproduction. So for reproduction, goes for the women, no, who should be like producing their offspring. But when you say also reproduction, it goes with cell division. Okay, gametogenesis. Okay, kasi hindi naman pwedeng magkaroon ng offspring ng walang sperm tsaka egg cell. And of course, regulation and control. Okay. So you have this, okay, every human being, every living organism should have regulation and control. Okay, one I think is the enzyme function, because the enzyme function has the lock and key, no? Parang susi, no? So there's a control, okay. And ang pinaka magandang example pa dito is yung hormone regulation. Okay. So hormones has their start and stop as you grow older. No? May hormone na bata ka pa, you have that already. May hormone na for the puberty stage. May hormone na adult ka na. Okay. And also hormones declines when we grow old. So you're familiar with the estrogen, progesterone that dominates you when you're a man or a woman. Okay. So minsan dyan nagkakaroon ng problema, no? The abnormality of hormones that you are supposed to have. And there were even researches that you could see, you could read. Marami ako nabasa dyan because I also taught last semester physiological, biological psychology. And when you talk about that subject, it's not more of, although it deals up with the physiological aspect of a human person, it also explains that there were hormonal component that is found in the body that would explain why such a person behaves this way and that way. Yun ang maganda sa subject na yun. And I think you could get that in your higher year. I think in your third year or fourth year. Okay. So let's start with, ayan. Okay. Ano nakikita nyo? So this is the hierarchy, no? You see the hierarchy. Okay. So atom, you deal up with this in chemistry, no, are made up of subatomic particles. So when we talk about this, these are proton, neutron, and electron. When you talk about proton, these are the positive charge, subatomic particle. Neutron are the neutral charge, but both proton and neutron are found in the nucleus. It is the subatomic particles that we call electron that is found in the orbital. And it actually dictates what kind of bond this type of atom would be making with other atoms. In higher form, when you talk about atom, we have the molecules or compounds. Minsan, no? Kaya lang talaga sabi ko nga, these words really overlap each other. Molecule or compound. And of course, the organelle that makes up a cell. So there were so many organelles. Itatakal natin yan mamaya. Okay. Now, when you talk about cell, okay, it is defined to be the smallest living unit. Okay, it may be a free living also because kung unicellular yan, no? So they can live alone. No? There were really cells that are unicellular. One are the bacterial cells or the ancient cells, the cyanobacterium. Okay, and it can also be a part of a multicellular organism like us, tayo, no? We had so many types of cells inside the body. And what group of cells would make up tissues, no? Tissues could have several shapes, like cuboidal, okay. For example, sa skin nyo, no? The dermis, the epidermis, you have so many tissues there. These were actually layers, okay, that protects your organ, okay. So yung skin natin, okay. So there were tissues. Yung parang pag binabalatan mo, isa-isang, ano yung class? Parang isa-isang layer. Okay, so these were tissues. And these tissues were made up of cells. And the group of tissues that you have actually make up an organ. Okay, and several organs. So when you talk about organ, we have, of course, the nervous system, no? Okay, we have the nervous system, we have the kidney, the heart, respiratory, circulatory, ilang bang organ? I think we have 6 or 7 organ system in the body, no? But if you would look at, for example, the function of respiratory and circulatory, they actually overlap. Pag diniscuss mo sa circulatory, dadaan ka kay respiratory because you're going to tackle about the lungs, no? Okay, when you talk about the heart, you talk about the lungs because the process was there. So, yung blood system natin, okay, dinadaanan lahat yan, i-discuss mo. Okay, kaya medyo mas komplikado when you talk about physiology. Okay, and then, of course, different multicellular organisms, no? So, it's not only us, no? Other animals also. Okay, other plants also. Okay, so they belong in a kind of community. Okay, so we can say that we are a population. You don't say we mix with other population. You say only human population. Okay, so different class. So ibig sabihin, species ng aso, dog population, cat population. Okay, and these actually interacts in a community. No, community is an area where different population interact with each other. And it's made up of the biotic and abiotic factors. We talk about abiotic factors. These were the things that has no life, like air, sun, soil. But we need them to sustain our life. Okay, to sustain the life of other living organisms. Like for example, oxygen was very important to us. Okay, and community is what makes up an ecosystem. So there were also several types of the ecosystem. Okay, like for example, we have the water ecosystem. So maraming water ecosystem. We have the lake, we have the sea, we have the river. So ecosystem is what you say is typically used if you're going to pertain for may mga nakatira dyan. Okay. Hindi naman necessarily tao lang. Dapat sabihin mo na agad ecosystem, no? Basta may nabuhay dyan, may nag-i-interact dyan, ecosystem yan. So like for example, terrestrial ecosystem, no? Sa terrestrial, marami ring klase. We have the urban ecosystem, we have the rural ecosystem, agricultural ecosystem, grassland ecosystem, and etc. Okay. Okay, for the cooler part of the earth, we have the tundra. Diba? And of course, all of those things composes the biosphere. The biosphere is the living part of the earth. Okay, any place on earth that has life is considered to be the biosphere. Okay, so basic properties of cells, we have cells that are highly complex and organized in design. They possess a genetic material, okay, what we call the DNA, and it's capable of producing for themselves. The fact that it undergo mitosis and meiosis, it acquires and utilizes energy. The energy is what we call adenosine triphosphate or ATP. Cells carry out a variety of chemical reactions. These were the different metabolisms, no? Why? In order to have a chemical reaction para makuha nila yung byproduct na gusto nila. Okay, for example, for the production of ATP, okay, our cell would undergo glycolysis, cellular respiration, electron transport chain, mainly for the reason of producing adenosine triphosphate that would be numbered like 34 to 36, depende sa organism. Cells engage in numerous mechanical activities, okay, mechanical activities that was actually associated with the chemical activity that would be happening inside the cell. And of course, cells are able to respond to stimuli, the outside environment. We always do that, diba? We always react. For example, temperature, okay. And cells are capable of self-regulation. Para siyang may sariling isip, no? Okay, yung mga organelles niya, okay, para siyang isang maliit na factory. Okay. So, kailangan lahat ng cells natin, class, ganun. Habang nabubuhay tayo. Kasi pag may nagka-problema in any part of the body that we have, and we have a cells that become a problem, typically, yung sinasabi natin cancer, no? It become metastasized. Parang nawalan siya sa sarili niya, na, ano yun? Nag-outgrow siya. I mean, hindi na sumobra siya ng dami. Mas nado-dominate niyang magkaroon ng problema yung iba pang cells. Lalo na pag-asa blood system mo na yan, class, mas mahirap siyang i-control. Okay? So here we have the cell classification based on complexity of structural organization. So, kanina nga, nasabi ko, no, this is a eukaryotic cell, an animal cell, and this is a plant cell. So, looking at the tree, you could see that they vary in shapes, di ba? They vary in structures also. So, pwede yung, ito to, for example, ito may vacuole din to class, may vacuole to. But you see, the vacuole of a plant cell is big because the vacuole of a plant cell has water, no? This is for cytoplasmic streaming, yung pag-ikot ng tubig, okay, yung sa xylem, sa phloem. So, that is much required by the plant cell for the process of photosynthesis. And there were also structures that was present in an plant cell, but you cannot see that in an animal cell. Example, chloroplast, plastids. Okay. So, kung titingnan mo, kung mas komplikado pa yan, alam niyo kung bakit? Ang binibigay lang sa atin is the simplest structure. And here is an example of a prokaryotic cell or a bacterial cell. So, comparing an animal cell and a bacterial cell, you could see na walang nucleus ang prokaryotic cell. Diba? Animal and plant has it. Okay. What else? Scattered lang ang kanyang genetic material. Hindi tulad sa animal cell, it's enclosed. Meron siyang nucleus. May mga nuclear pore pa siya. Okay. So, may mga function, may mga reason kung bakit may ganun siyang structure. And sa prokaryotic, you could see a cell membrane and a cell wall. Imagine that. Okay. Wherein, ang cell wall, ito yan. Ang cell membrane, nandito lang yan. Pero sa bacterial cell, dalawa, makikita mo. And if you go deeper than that, you would check that there were even some chemical substances that is really embedded only on the cell membrane and cell wall of an animal cell, bacterial cell. That also makes them different to inhibit, no? Kaya nga, pag may, may sakit ka, depende yan kung anong bacterial infection ang nagdo-dominate sa'yo. Okay. So here, class, we have the model of the origin of eukaryotes, no? So ito yung primitive, ito yung nauna. Okay. Cyanobacteria, archaea bacteria. Okay, these are the early cells, no? And they evolved to become the eukarya. And they had the DNA. Okay. Okay, until such time na magkaroon sila ng chloroplast. So pag ganun, class, no? Okay. Where saan nanggaling ang mga eukaryotes. Okay, here you see the sizes of how are you going to compare from each to others. Okay. Kung ito yung atom, diba, napakaliit, no? These are the lipids, the protein. Ayan, papalaki siya, ha? Okay. This is a flu virus. Ito yung virus na meron nag-i-infect ang... Okay, pasensya na kay class, may humihilik. May mga sakit nga akong halos lahat talaga kami nagkasakit. I was just thankful na ako yung naunang nagkasakit na. Okay, to take good care of them. Okay, so these were the things that you can see under the electron microscope. These are the light microscope. So check on the sizes, no? 0.1 nanometer. So hindi na to visible sa naked eye, class. Okay, ang kaya lang ng naked eye natin is in this. Ito yung range lang na to. Okay, the frog egg. Okay. Okay. Now, if you're going to compare prokaryotic from prokaryotic, aside from the size, eukaryotic are complex. Pero sabi ko nga, huwag niyong mamaliitin ng bacterial cell. They were just simple. But if you would see their function, particularly for the transfer of the genetic material, or the chances that they did, they could actually have their anong tawag doon? Yung sinasabi ng bacteriophage, that we were infected by a virus. Pag infected ka ng virus, chances are, pwede rin sila maki-associate doon sa infection na nangyayari sa katawan mo. That's why even if you had viral infection, you could also take antibiotic. Kasi inflammation could be a leading factor na meron ka na rin bacterial infection. Okay, and then for the ribosomes, the prokaryotic has the 30S and the 50S. Ito 40S and 60S subunits. Okay, organism. Okay. How about comparing plant to to animal cells. Ito ay prokaryotic and eukaryotic plant cells. Usually larger in size and regular in shape, no? Usually smaller in size and irregular in shape, no? Walang cell wall ang animal cell, walang chloroplast. Okay. Kasi ang chloroplast ay responsable lang naman sa process ng photosynthesis. Okay. Sinabi ko na to kanina, large vacuole. Nucleus is located more than on the periphery due to the large water filled vacuole. Okay, mas na-notify ka nung presence ng vacuole kaysa ng nucleus. Nucleus are usually found at the central region of the cell. Okay, also, the plant cell have the starch granules. Okay, ito yung food reserves niya. While tayo, we have glycogen, which is our food reserve. So, take note of the differences. Okay, yan. Ayan, kung i-close mo yung view, no? So, these are the centriole, these are the smooth ER, we even have the rough ER, these are the lysosomes, this is for digestion, okay, of the waste material, okay, the mitochondrion, it is the globular heads, okay, we even have the lipid droplets, the nucleus, okay, the nuclear envelope, the rough ER, okay, tingnan niyo pinagkaiba. So, the difference between them is, may ribosomes ang rough ER, the Golgi or the Golgi apparatus. We also have the secretory granules. Now, here we have the plasma membrane. Okay, they were actually patterned to the fluid mosaic model. Okay, so nakita nyo, no? Dami, may mga receptor siya. We have the glycolipid. We have the carbohydrates here. Okay. And makikita nyo yung layer niya, the non-polar ends and the polar ends. Okay, so ito yung mga maliliit na to, yung may mga bilog, and they have the tails. These were phospholipids, hydrophobic and hydrophilic, meaning hydro, water-fearing, and hydrophilic. Teka lang. Okay, water. Hydrophobic, water-hating, no? So these are the proteins, no? These were actually channel proteins where there were molecules that passes through them, get inside the cell. Okay, same thing also to get outside the cell. So, kung titingnan mo to, sasabihin mo, hindi pala lahat papasok ng, madaling pumasok sa cell. So, that is a very good characteristic of the cell that we have class. Kasi isipin mo, kung lahat ng molecule ay makakapasok, napaka-vulnerable ng cell natin sa mga substances, no? So, there were only molecules that can pass through. Like, for example, oxygen, water, yan, pwede yan, pumasok. Pero, pag yung mga tipo ng potassium, sodium, okay, what else? Particularly sugar, no? Okay, hindi yan basta nakakapasok. Okay? It requires a channel to pass through. And it even requires an energy. Okay, this is provided by the ATP para makapasok sila sa loob ng cell. Okay? I think it's in there. Yung sinabi ko kanina. Okay. What else? So here you see also the different filaments of the cytoskeleton. Rigid siya class. Siya may mga baging, may mga tali. Okay. So baka akala nyo kasi, basta pan lang siya, no? Basta parang gel-like. Aside from the gel-like that was inside the cytoplasm, no? Ay may mga tali siya. Okay. Yan. May mga microtubules siya. Okay. And here are the different types of protein. So we knew that proteins were classified into 4. Diba? Alam nyo, primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary protein. So remember, ang trabaho ng cell is papasukin yung mga kailangan mo ng cell to metabolize at ilabas yung mga hindi kailangan. And if there were waste materials that was inside, okay, may mga organelles na magtatrabaho para doon. Okay? So, pattern of different types of molecules put together, meaning mosaic. It's very complicated. So, pag tinastas mo yan, no? You open that. Okay. So, nakatago dito yung mga takot sa tubig ng mga phospholipids. And these were the cholesterol. Ayan. What else? Okay, we also had the peripheral protein, or we call this the extrinsic protein. May protein na nandito lang sa ibabaw, tapos may peripheral dito sa ilalim. Okay, and these are the, ayan na. Okay, channel protein. So, isipin mo kung pag-aaralan mo talaga ng detailed ang biology, in a higher biology, you would check that baka itong lesson lang na to class, it would take a course. Okay. That's, kumbaga ito, generalized pa, no? Okay, so here we have saturated. You see this? We have the saturated, okay, fats, unsaturated fats. Okay. So what makes it different from each other? The cis actually is made up of a double bond, no? Wherein the trans is a kink, no? May kink. Ang saturated ay single bond lang, it's only straight. Okay. So membrane molecules are constantly moving into dimensions in a fluid fashion, which was similar to iceberg, which is floating in the ocean. So there are main factors that influence cell membrane, why it's fluid. One is cholesterol, two is unsaturated fatty acids, and three is temperature. Okay. So we talk about plasma membrane specialization. Ayan, we had different types of microvilli. Okay, what is the purpose of microvilli? Finger-like projection. It also increases the surface area for absorption. Ayan. These are the junction, no? Okay. Tight, impermeable junction. Okay. From one cell to another. Again, class, minsan kasi pwede nyo sabihin, ma'am, ba't iba na naman ang itsura? Okay. Depende yan kung anong organ na yan. Okay. Depende na yan kung saan mo yan, anong klase ng organ ang nag-hold dyan. Okay. Iba-iba talaga class ang klase ng cell. Napaka-generalized lang nung pinapakita sa atin. Okay. This is a desmosome, anchoring junction, the plasma membrane of adjacent cells. So when cells were adjacent to each other, di ba? There were these structures that connect. Parang nag-hold sa kanila. Okay? So what are the different membrane junctions? The purpose of that, we have the tight junction, the desmosome, and the gap junction. Okay, so where can you see now the tight junction? Ayan, ito. Ito. This is the tight junction. Ngayon naman, desmosome to. Okay. Ayan. Ito. And then the gap junction is below. Okay. It's also called the comminuting junction. So when you talk about cytoplasm, it's a substance inside the plasma membrane and outside the nucleus. Okay. Cytosol is the fluid portion of the cytoplasm. Okay. Yung iba class, hindi ko na because I know that you could read this. Okay. Reading it again does not serve a purpose. The important thing here is you could understand why it is so, diba? Okay, ito na-explain ko na kanina. Okay, when you talk about carbohydrates, this is part of the macromolecules. Macromolecules together with protein, lipids, okay, and of course the nucleic acid. When you talk about the nucleus, this is a double membrane. Double membrane. Sineseparate naman niya yung cytoplasm. So meron siyang pore, meron siyang nucleopores. Anong purpose nun? Dito lumalabas yung RNA, no? RNA na nauutusan na ni DNA para mag-undergo ng protein synthesis. Okay. What else? We have the nuclear envelope. Tingnan natin. So inside, you have here the chromatin, which is a part of the chromosome. Okay, you have the nuclear pore. So, pag may lumabas dyan, class, ang lalabas dyan ay yung single-stranded RNA na. Pero kumbaga, dinikta lang yun ni DNA class. Pero ang function ng RNA na yan, dapat doon na mismo sa cytoplasm mangyayari. RNA does not stay long inside the nucleus. Kasi kumbaga teritoryo yan ni ano yun, DNA. Okay, so let's go for the eukaryotic nucleus, no? So here, okay, we have the endoplasmic reticulum, or the ER. It also has a nuclear pore, okay, nuclear envelope. Ito na yun, no? Ito yung nucleus natin. So dito siya naka-attach. Okay. So, rough ER, pag may ribosome siya. Okay, pag wala, smooth. Okay. Kung makikita mo, it was folded like this one, and each fold is called cisternae. Okay, and yung loob ng mga folded na yon is cisternal space. Okay. Here we have the cellular material outside the nucleus and inside the plasma membrane. So these are the site of the most cellular activity. So take note of that. One, we have the cytosol. It is semi-transparent fluid, no? Transparent, that suspends other structure in the cytoplasm. Organelles, maraming klase yan. And of course, inclusion, no? The chemical substances that may or may not be present depending on the type of cell. So in the nucleus, yung pinakamalaking structure ng isang eukaryotic cell, best known as the site of the ribosome biogenesis. It actually participates in the formation of signal recognition particles and it play a role in the cell. Okay, nagre-respond yung cell sa stress. Okay, meron siyang DNA, meron siyang RNA. Okay. And meron siyang specific chromosomal regions called the nuclear organizing regions or the NOR. The malfunctions of nuclear can be the cause of several human conditions. Kasi take note class, andun kasi lahat ng function. Kaya kung yung mismong nucleus mo may problema, okay, tapos depende pa kung ano stage nung nucleus na yun, okay. Let's say, for example, for the development of an embryo, okay, so malaki talaga ang magiging problema. And the nucleus that has been investigated as a target for cancer chemotherapy, okay? So we have here the intracellular compartments. So we have the characteristic of intracellular compartments. So ano yung mga meron ng isang intracellular compartments? Membrane bound. It houses, kumbaga, andito yung various cellular activity, saka metabolic activity. Siya yung nagpo-protect nito. Andito rin yung mga biosynthesis, metabolism of the different secretory products. Dito rin yung breakdown of long-chain fatty acids. So, ang dami. And then also regulating the trafficking within the cell. Meaning getting inside and outside the cell of the different substances. Okay, so we have here the endomembrane system. It occurs in the eukaryotic cell. It's closely associated to the nuclear membrane. It's defined more accurately as a set of membrane that form single functional unit, no? Tingnan, paliwanag ko na lang to sa Tagalog. Okay, sa endomembrane system, okay, may mga set of membranes dito. Pero yung set of membranes na yun, they just function single. Okay, pwedeng marami sila, but they function as one, no? Okay, because they were connected to each other. Okay. Parang ang cell kasi is para siyang may isip class eh. Okay, although we know that it's like dictated by the brain that we have. Pero sa totoo lang, gagalaw siya mag-isa. Kung magtatrabaho siya ng mag-isa, matik yung class. Parang it doesn't stop unless na tapos na yung trabaho niya. Okay, for example, yung pagpuproduce lang ng protein ng cell ng katawan natin, no? So, it would start like doing polypeptide. Pero di ba may mga start and stop codon tayo, no? So pag sinabi ng stop codon, tama na, kino-code lang niya eh. Okay, stop na. Okay. So sa totoo lang, it's like the body that we have. It's also compared to a factory, para siya isang bahay, no? Parang automatic lahat ng bagay. Kaya lang para siyang mas robotic class. Okay, for example, may mga waste material, may organelle na responsable doon, nilinisin yung cytoplasm. Parang laging ganun dapat ang situation sa isang cell. Kasi kung hindi yun mamimaintain, doon talaga nagsisetback ang abnormalities. Worst case scenario is pasukin talaga yan ng infection, particularly ng yan virus, no? Kasi virus, when it gets inside a cell, it would lead a cell to a lysis class, burst. Ganun ang nangyayari. Kaya nga, halimbawa, pinasok nung viral cell yung lungs, no? Diba? Nakita nyo naman. What it will do now is producing so much phlegm. And this phlegm is actually already associated also with bacteria. Pwede na yun eh. So what causes pneumonia? Either way, it could be the bacteria and the viral infection. But the fact that it causes inflaming the lungs, no? So, paano ka ba mabubuhay pa sa ganun? Kaya yung iba, kung hindi tutubuhan, di ba? At pag napuno na yung lungs natin ng phlegm, no? Why? Because it's the function of that virus. Okay, so magkukolapse talaga. Okay, so it's so hard. Okay. So now, organelles in the endomembrane system. So we have the nuclear membrane, endoplasmic reticulum, we have the Golgi apparatus, ayan na naman yung nagbabasketball, lysosomes, vesicles, endosomes, plasma cells membrane. So endomembrane system does not include, tandaan nyo, chloroplast, of course, sinabi ko na yung kanina, the mitochondria, and peroxisome. So, can you check why? Okay, tandaan nyo. Endomembrane system, hindi siya kasama to. Okay. So, you can check to Google. Ang chloroplast ay, so if you're going to pertain also for the animal cell. Yan. I think by the structure, you could see why. Okay, why is that included? So, there were relative volume occupied by the membrane. Enclosed organelle is a liver cell hepatocyte. Ayan. So, this is the, for example, for the liver cell class, there is a dominating structure there. So, check it out. Tingnan nyo yung kidney cell sa liver cell. You compare them. Hindi sila pare-pareho. Kasi may dominating structure sa liver cell na wala sa kidney cell. Why it was dominating? Because it was required for the function of the liver. Okay. Yan. Kailangan class bilisan natin. Bumabalik na naman ng mga batang nagpa-basketball. Okay. Transport mechanism, no? Transport mechanism to. Yan ang function ng ER. And also site for ribosomes. Okay. And then we have the, ano pa? Ano yung kanyang, okay, processing of proteins also. So here, ano na lang natin yung, kasi reading each verbatimly is useless class. So there were enzymes in the plasmic in the ER there were enzymes, no? So yung enzymes na yun ang ginagamit para sa protein synthesis and for the cellular transport. And also for the synthesis of lipids. So when you name those lipids, they are the triacyl, glycerols, cholesterol, and related compounds. Okay, so there should always be a biosynthesis of lipids that class, converting one lipid to another as it was required by the cell. Continued network of Latin sacs. Okay, next is, we have here the ER. Kung titingnan nyo ito sa microscope, that's how it looks like. Ito naman, okay. Kasi di ba sa higher bio, you could check it in a two-dimensional picture, three-dimensional, and you could always look that under the high-resolution microscope. Okay, tubular structure. They don't have the ribosomes. Sila yung responsable sa na drugs, no? Toxins. Okay, and also, kung dun sa RAP-ER, andun yung metabolism ng lipids, andito naman yung carbohydrate metabolism, where calcium is also stored, no? Okay, also for the biosynthesis of the steroids in the male and female hormones in the adrenal cortex. Okay, here is, okay, who invented this? The Golgi stacks. Depende yan sa cell. Okay, here we have the Golgi also. Ano yung pinaka-function niya? This is to collect and dispatch station of protein products that is received coming from the ER. Okay. Yung protein na yon, it was synthesized in the ER and it will then be packaged into vesicles. Tapos sasama sa Golgi apparatus. Tapos, these cargo proteins now ay mamomodify na, no? And they are now destined to be secreted through the process of exocytosis para magamit ng cell. Okay? So, tingnan nyo yung differences ng kanilang function. It's a bit complicated when you were in high school. Okay, ito naman, it all explains you what the size of a mammalian cell. Okay. Functions of the Golgi. Sinabi ko na, inulit ko lang ngayon. Okay, ano pa to? So, kanina, sinabi ko na yung cisternate, no? So, cis phase is the receiving side of the Golgi apparatus. Ito yung vesicle. Okay. So, you see the new vesicles are being forming. Parang pag may namamanufacture na siya class, nagbibilog-bilog na siya, and this is ready for transportation. Okay. Now, here, ayan, pathway 1. O, tingnan nyo, ha? Okay, then the pathway 2, and then pathway 3. Okay. Kusa siyang hihiwalay, no? Dun sa organelle. And then, lahat ng yan, if it's not required inside the cell anymore, tingnan nyo, mag-a-attach siya sa cell membrane. Okay? And it will be secreted by the process of exocytosis. Okay. You see that? Okay, you see the transport mechanism that happens. Okay, now let's go to mitochondria. Mitochondria is so popular, saying that it is the powerhouse of the cell. Diba? Okay, powerhouse of the cell. Sabi din, dito daw talaga din nagsimula. Okay, in the Endosymbiosis theory. Okay, dito daw nag-start lahat. Okay, so there were theories that arises na may mga nagsasabi na it all starts from the mitochondria. Kasi kung iisipin, kung wala daw mitochondria, saan manggagaling yung mga adenosine triphosphate na yan? No? So if you look at the mitochondria, you would say it's a cristae and the matrix, no? The inner membrane fold and also the outer membrane. Here, you would see a smooth outer membrane. We have the folded inner membrane. The cristae is the inner membrane folds, and the matrix is the space inside the cristae. Okay, so what does the endosymbiote theory means? Mitochondria and plastids evolved from prokaryotic cells that took residence in larger cells and eventually lost their independence. The cells contains the endosymbiotes because dependent upon them from food processing and in turn provide them with a protective and rich environment. This is a mutualistic relationship. Okay, yan. So these were the supporting theories, no? Okay, pakapabasa na lang class. Okay, para sa quiz ay, okay, this slides is so long. Okay, of course, the ribosomes, okay, it's found in the cytoplasm, no, the ER, rough ER. Okay, it's different, no, because they are actually serving for the function of producing protein. Okay, so there had two subunits lacking. So sila yung kailangan, no? Translate encoded information from the cell nucleus provided by messenger. So if you're curious about this, you could check on the production of protein inside the cell, no? What is the function of the messenger RNA and how it is different from the function of transfer RNA in the process of translation and transcription. Ayan, ayan. So, kailangan siya. So, ito yung mmRNA class. Pumapasok siya. So, mayroong small subunit, no? Tsaka large subunit ng ribosomes. Tapos, ayan. Dikit-dikit na yung amino acid. So, one part of a polypeptide is an amino acid, no? This is a growing peptide chain, no? Papahaba siya ng papahaba, class. Okay, habang, kumbaga, doon siya nakasandwich sa mga ribosomes. So, pag tapos na yung paggawa ng isang polypeptide, putol na yun because there is a stop codon that would say, oh, tama na. Okay, meron ka ng primary protein. Okay. So, we have this, ang tawag doon, yung S, no, is Svedberg unit ang tawag doon. We have the large subunit and the small subunit. Okay, parang kamay na nakapatong. Kasi sa loob na, produce yung protein. Okay. So, maraming klase class. Kung sabi naman, okay, gumawa ka ng isang globular protein, which is a quaternary. So, gagawin yan. Okay, you see? So, you know that protein shapes is proteins are named depending on their shapes, no? Okay. Kaya kung straight, primary siya. Pag medyo nag-helix na siya class, secondary. Pag medyo nagbe-bend na siya, yung parang, ano nang tawag doon? Papunta na siya sa coil, na tulad nito, no? Globular, pabilog na siya. Yung blood cell natin, it's made up of globular proteins. Yung hemoglobin, no? Ayan. So, it's very, so lysosomes naman, when you talk about lysosome, okay, it's involved in the process of secretion, okay, but mostly for the autophagy or autophagy, no? Okay, so material from the outside the cell is taken up through the process of endocytosis, while material from the inside of the cell is digested through autophagy. Siya yung may enzyme siya sa loob, no? Na kung hindi niya na kailangan ng katawan, kung may mga waste materials sa loob ng cell natin, siya yung naglilinis. Okay. Fusion form, secondary lysosome, we have primary lysosome. Okay, so this is also in the Golgi apparatuses. Pero usually pakalat-kalat lang yan. Okay. Ang tawag doon, meron siyang digestive enzyme. We call this the acid hydrolases. It was actually stored in the lysosomal lumen. Okay. It's not found in, okay, take note of that. It's not found in plant cells. So all enzymes are hydrolases. Okay. So we have different types of enzymes, no? Marami pa. That was not mentioned there. Okay, digest, excess, or worn out and damaged organelles, capable of degrading all the major classes of biological macromolecules, degrade extracellular material brought into cell by endocytosis, and this was the importance of lysosomes. Nutrition, defense, recycling, and differentiation. Okay. So early endosomes, we have vesicles budding off the trans-Golgi network. Okay, we have late endosomes. So napakahaba nito, class. Okay, I think I'll end up there because ito pala ay 81. Okay, we'll have to wrap up that all over again. Okay. Can only speak an hour. 80 slides. Okay. Don't worry. The recorded video